Hey everyone, and welcome to day 2 of my 12 days of anime videos. I'm Simply G, and although it is summer in Australia right now, it is raining outside, so apologies if you hear any rain. It was like 40 degrees yesterday Celsius, super stinking hot, and then now today is like thunderstorms. I don't know what's going on, but today I'm going to be talking about manga licensing, some of the surprises that we got this year, some things that were announced to be licensed for next year, as well as sort of diversifying through certain demographics. We have seen so many new books in all sorts of genres, all sorts of demographics this year, even ones that you don't necessarily feel like they're missing a lot of their popular books. That, of course, being shonen, usually with shonen I think the perception is we get almost all of, especially the major ones in English, the ones that have a lot of popularity, who have anime, who have you know, these followings that aren't just through Western means. A lot of people read scans of various shonen online, and so most of them really do gather a lot of people's interests, and so it's not that often that we don't get them in English, especially with Viz and their Shonen Jump imprint, but even like Yen Press and other publishers do put out the less mainstream shonen, as it were, things like Black Butler and Nabara no O. Those are both yen titles. I'm trying to think of something else, but I can't right now. But this year, shonen actually, in my opinion, got some really exciting and interesting new licenses, especially because I feel like people maybe didn't expect them to get licensed because they had missed their opportunity to be licensed. The first one being Mob Psycho 100, which is actually a Dark Horse license and published book, and this has a really big pedigree, but I think because of the art style, people didn't necessarily think it would gain the same type of popularity as One Punch Man, which is done by the same writer, or the writer writes both. This also has One's artwork, which is why it's a bit of a harder sell than One Punch Man, but in my opinion this is the better of the two. I love Mob so much, whereas I can take or leave One Punch Man. This series, I'm glad that a lot of people are more aware of it thanks to the anime. We are getting a second season of the anime, but I know that when nothing sort of happened after the first season of anime was airing and ended, and no one really seemed to be looking into the license for this, people thought that it was probably just a bit too ugly, as it were, to find an audience in the West, and which would have been a really big shame. But thankfully we were proven wrong. I am a little bit hesitant because it is Dark Horse and they're not always the greatest at keeping things in print or finishing them until the end, but I am hoping that we will see more and more of this series. The other major one that we got this year was Silver Spoon. Again, a series with a very high pedigree, being written and drawn by Hiromu Arakawa of Fullmetal Alchemist fame. And again, this one has 2 seasons of anime actually already over, and although it does have this very well-known name attached to it, it has 2 very good seasons of anime, this series I think was languishing for a long time because I don't know the specifics of it, but for shonen this isn't like a lot of what people think of shonen, especially action shonen. There's really not that. It's a comedy, first and foremost, a comedy coming of age story. And so, like, if you compare it even to the mangaka's other work, being Fullmetal Alchemist, it's very different. I know that this has been on people's, like, must license or hoped for licenses for a long time, and we finally got this book. I'm super happy. This comes out really quickly. Again, has had a very high turnover with this series, with one book every 2 months, so, or at least it feels that way. We're getting volume 6 this month, and volume 1 just came out like just in February, so we've gotten a big chunk of it very rapidly. But it's not just shonen that got sort of surprise licenses, and shonen isn't the only demographic that really saw growth this year. One of my favorite demographics, being josei, really diversified this year, which was really exciting. We saw the ending of some really beloved series, and we saw some expansion into new series, unexpected series. Some of the debuts we had was like My Boy, which is really lovely, really absolutely gorgeous series, as well as Wotakoi, which is sort of a very funny romance, office life, otaku culture type deal. This one is really good, and again, one with an anime that I'm sure a lot of people watched this year. It seemed quite popular. And also with the print release of Tokyo Tarareba Girls, which is Higashimura's most recent work in English. We also had her Blank Canvas series licensed too, so that's something to look forward to next year. But we also saw the ending or the conclusion of certain beloved josei, or at least I love them. First being Descending Stories, volume 10 is out this month, so we've gotten all the books for this series. Gorgeous, beautiful, very different from maybe some of the other josei I've just shown off, but this book in particular really shows, or the other series that I finished or was finished in josei and very popular, much more so than Descending Stories, I think it was Princess Jellyfish. But even looking at these two books, the difference in them, in storytelling and characters and themes, is just so big. So obviously there's a lot more to this demographic than just like office ladies falling in love. Jump cut. But even if we are talking about office ladies in love, we got a interesting twist on that story. This is technically a license from last year, so it's not really a 2018 title, but it was being put out this year, and the final volume is out, I think, March next year, and that is Everyone's Getting Married, a office lady romance with a twist of it. The title is very disingenuous, sort of. It doesn't really fully portray what this series is, and that's a good thing, because it does bring up a lot of things that people in relationships sort of have to deal with, compromises, that type of deal. And as I said, this is just a few of the many series coming out. We have a lot as well, like Viz has a josei title with I can't remember the Japanese word. It's it's a K word, and then the Bed and Breakfast, or Spirits Bed and Breakfast, that series is coming out, the manga, so that's a josei title. There's a lot of other couple different things, but it's really nice, as I said, to see so many different varied types of stories and characters, because for a long time josei existed in the West as just like office lady romance, which is fine, but that's not everything, and it's sort of not great if you just have one type of story within a demographic, because then that's what people think it is all the time, and that's all it can be. But the other demographic that I was very personally interested in this year, that really expanded and really evolved and for the future has some really great prospects, it was LGBT manga, with the ending of My Brother's Husband, an absolutely wonderful family manga about obviously having gay family members and sort of trying to look at all of your prejudices and society's prejudices, but never in an never accusing you of necessarily anything, and sort of kindly educating people on certain topics. It's really lovely and really sweet, and not too long, with only 2 omnibuses. We also saw Seven Seas really expand into this market with The Bride Was a Boy, which was absolutely adorable and really sweet and lovely. I really loved this manga. But also Claudine, which covers sort of similar things. Both the main characters in these manga are transgender, but this one is very much the 70s drama tragedy that you would expect from Ikeda, whereas this is a much more heartwarming, lovely, sort of educational autobiography that leaves you feeling all warm and fuzzy inside afterwards. Great books. We're also seeing next year Shimanami Tasagari. I was trying to remember the English name, but I don't. It's Shimanami Tasagari. I'm really, really looking forward to that. They've also expanded their BL line, and Yuri, as of expected, of Seven Seas, definitely the representing force in Yuri manga here in the West. But Seven Seas didn't just do that. We also saw a huge push into the light novel market from them. The one that I personally picked up was Record of Lodos War, which is sort of regarded as one of the first, if not the first, light novel under that classification, which is a really wonderful fantasy story. But they also partnered with J Novel, who are a digital light novel publishing sort of subscription type deal. They put out a lot of different books and sort of release them chapter by chapter, so you can read it ongoing as it's being translated. J Novel and Seven Seas partnered up this year, and so Seven Seas will be releasing a lot of their books in print, which is really cool. J Novel also, interestingly, has started licensing manga, so hopefully we'll see some of their titles coming to print. I don't really know anything that they've licensed, but just it's really interesting to see how this sort of relationship has evolved. But if we're talking about light novels, this is another thing that I think a lot of publishers are really expanding into, especially Seven Seas. We've had, as I said, Lodos War. They licensed a Tenchi light novel, which is sort of gobsmacking. In previous years, Yen has really been the one to be sort of the figurehead of the light novel market within the English-speaking community, but between Seven Seas and Vertical, we've seen a lot more light novels being put out. Seven Seas also has some like franchise light novels, like, as I said, Tenchi, but this month they're putting out the first of the Ancient Magus's Bride light novels, which is something for people to enjoy. I'm sure a lot of people are interested in that. But Vertical, of course, we've had the Monogatari series of like Bakemonogatari, Nisei Monogatari, all of those. It just recently got a box set for the first 6 or 7 novels in a complete box set. Of course, there are still other novels coming out because that series has no ending. It's just keeps going. It just continues on. But they also got some non-franchise stuff, some stuff that isn't sort of the Monogataris and the Katana Monogataris, which was their other license. We saw The Dark Maidens, which is a really short but kind of really creepy and interesting mystery novel, which is one I think you should check out if you do like some really dark mysteries. It's you feel like it'll be predictable, but it's really not completely predictable. I read this one for the Summer Reading Challenge being held by EnglishLightNovels.com. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm actually a reviewer on that website. So I read light novels and then write about them. So if you want to hear some of my opinions and reviews on particular light novels, you can go there. But that's something that happened to me this year that I was really excited and happy about and really proud of having done. But this book in particular was a real standout for me. I tend to write about series that I already know, and as this is really not attached to anything else, it doesn't have a sequel, it doesn't have any sort of spin-offs, this is just what you have to go by. And being able to be so memorable in a single book, especially such a short one, obviously light novels, this isn't technically a light novel, but it is like under the light novel imprint of Vertical. This is one that stayed with me because a lot of the other books that I write about are ongoing, sort of, again, franchise sorts of things like Spice and Wolf and Bakano and Durarara and the Fullmetal Alchemist light novels I wrote about this year. There's been a lot of light novels, both like quite old and just brand spanking new. So again, another sort of medium even that has just really shifted and evolved, and a lot more companies have seen the popularity of them being put out by Yen Press and realizing that people will, you know, actually buy novels nowadays, when previously it wasn't regarded as something that was feasible for, you know, anime and manga fans. We also saw a really big shift in another jump cut, but we also saw a really big shift in, or a really big push into Yuri for a lot of publishers. Obviously, Seven Seas sort of proved the formula, proved that people will buy Yuri and that it's not necessarily that big of a niche anymore. The same going with BL. A lot of companies have started to think about licensing BL, which is good because that demographic of fan has been really ignored over the last 5 or so years, thanks to June being basically dead in the water. And although Sublime does have a quite consistent schedule, only 2 publishers who never really seem to license anything, or if they do, it's like 1 book maybe a year, has meant that the whole community has stagnated, and that's unfortunate for companies up until now, because fangirls, Fujoshi, will buy stuff. They have money and they will spend it, which is something they knew back in 2005, but not so much in 2015. So it's interesting to see that so many companies, Yen Press, Kodansha, Seven Seas, have all really this year license more BL, and license more BL, unusual BL that isn't just the really terrible and like just not great 90s stuff that a lot of people feel is not fantastic anymore. I think people are more discerning, which is a good thing. But yeah, so it's meant that manga, even light novels, and all sorts of things have really, really come into its own. Certain demographics have really expanded and grown popular over this last year and for these coming years. I'm sure there's plenty of things that were licensed that were surprises to you guys. Let me know if there's anything in particular that I didn't necessarily talk about today, because there's just so much. There's just too much to even try to cover everything. But it's really, really, really great. And for me, who has very broad taste, it does mean that it's going to be more difficult for me to budget everything for the coming future, but I will never complain about having more of a good thing. And even if I'm not particularly a fan of something, I am always an encouragement for available legal releases of manga that, or light novels or whatever, that everyone can enjoy and that fans can enjoy. So it's really, really, really exciting, really good. I'm hoping that this continues into 2019 and 2020 and the foreseeable future. I'm sure that some things will be a bit of a gamble, but I'm hoping they pay off for companies. And so we'll see more of this type of thing in the future. But let me know your thoughts, your opinions, things that you're looking forward to, or things that came out this year that you've really, really enjoyed, whether or not you think that the certain demographics have really expanded, whether that be josei or seinen or shonen or shoujo or whatever. Let me know. I like reading all of your comments. I do try to respond to every single one of them. But I hope you guys have enjoyed. I'm Simply G, as I said at the beginning, and I'll catch you in the next video, guys. Bye till then.